Labdien visiem! Esam pieslēgšies Logos konferences otrajai dienai. Paldies visiem, kas pieslēdzās. Mani sauc Marija, un šodien es vadīšu šo sesiju darbnīcu, kas saucas Neizmest graudus kopā ar pelvām. Digitālā transformācija nenozīmē sākt no nulles. Mūsu šodienas runātājs ir Metjū O'Brajens no Austrālijas. Bunberijas Katedrāles ģimnāzijas direktors. Viņš ir arī Microsoft Inovatīvo pedagogu starptautiskās kopienas biedrs. Viņš šodien mums pastāstīs par svarīgiem praktiskiem aspektiem, kā viņa ģimnāzija pārgāja no tradicionālā papīra un pilspalvu lietošanas mācību procesā uz digitālām pilspalvām datoriem. Pirms es dodu vārdu mūsu viesim, īsi par šīs darbnīcas norisi. Šī sesija viņa ilgst 60 minūtes, un pēdējās 15 minūtes tiks veltīts jautājumiem. Tos jūs droši varat rakstīt čatā visas sesijas garumā. Un šī darbnīca tiks ierakstīta. Metjū, lūdzu.
Thank you, Maria. I'll just set up my screen share so that we can see everything. Excellent. I think that is all working. Maria, can you just give me a thumbs up if my screen's coming through correctly for you? Thank you. So I'll get that going. So thank you, Maria, and thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you all today. As Maria gave in the introduction, I'm based in Australia, and the title of the talk has been translated for the Latvian audience. In Australia, I would use the term "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," but for you, I'm told that this makes more sense. Don't throw the grain out with the chaff. And it's looking at digital transformation, and it doesn't mean starting from the beginning, which is where those expressions come from. In my PowerPoint presentation, I've just put an executive summary of what I'm going to go through. It's just something I do. I don't know if the slides are being shared afterwards. I'm not going to read through that. You don't need me to read through what I'm going to do through the presentation today. Just a little bit about us. As a school, we're 50 years old next year. We were established in 1972. We're co-educational, so both boys and girls, and we've also got a boarding school as a part of our school. Boarding students, we've got around 100 boarding students and a total of 700 students in the school. We are amazingly privileged in where we are in the world and in Australia. The star on the map that I've got there down at the bottom is that's where we are, in a place called Bunbury, just south of Perth. I don't know if anyone likes wine, but the Margaret River wine region is just down the road from our school, so a 40-minute drive. So it's a pretty nice place to be. And this is our campus. This is the view towards where my office is. It's a beautiful bush campus within Australia. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. So yeah, just a little bit about the school. So I'll give you a sense of what I plan to talk about in this presentation, and I've tried to break it into what I consider to be 4 really logical steps, and I hope it's useful to everybody. Firstly, I'm going to go through some background specifically about our school, how we approached the problem, what the problem was, how we approach change, and looking at the fundamental 2 fundamental principles that we were trying to embed in everything that we did, and then 2 models that we're using. Then I'm going to go look at a term that I think I've coined, I've coined with others, pedagogy, and I'll detail that a bit later on, and then about taking it a bit further, and then also the 4 is the impact of COVID-19 and what that's meant for us as an organisation. But let's get into the background. So firstly, it's going to be 60 minutes, well, 45 minutes, hopefully, look at 5 years of work of me and my team in this school. So just a really big warning there. We're going to be going quite quickly through that, and I will, out of necessity, I will miss parts of the story. It doesn't give you the whole picture. This isn't supposed to be that, but it has been a long body of work. And just by way of background, I have a wonderful group of people, professionals that work with me, alongside me, and they're members of what I call my IT steering committee. And what they do with me, they help with the direction of IT, not only from a teaching and learning standpoint, what we do in classrooms, but also the technical provisions, and then the supply of all of the resources that we need, the infrastructure and that sort of thing. And so it's a work of a really an important group of people. I'm not for 1 minute presenting to you saying that this is my sole work. It's not. It's everybody's work. When we started going through this process, one of the things that we made sure that we looked at is the body of research in change management. And this is the Kubler-Ross curve, the change curve, and it's a way of understanding what people go through as they're going through change. There's the initial, the shock or surprise right at the beginning. Okay, what's going on here? Then there's the sense of denial. Okay, so this change isn't happening. And let's talk about that. I should have said, so let's talk about the digital transformation, to using a stylus and a screen like I'm demonstrating today. And so firstly, the school shock, so we're not going to do this sort of stuff. And then denial, it's never going to stay. We're never going to, it's not going to make any difference. Why do I need to get involved? Then typically people end up in some sort of frustration. Why does this thing not ever work? Why can't I make the software work? Even today, when I'm presenting, I don't often use Zoom. We use Teams for everything where I am. So there's a little bit of a, oh, okay, have I shared it right? Have I done it right? Then there's a sort of a depression. Okay, well, this is it. The world is over. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I want to go off and do something else. This is all too hard. But then if you can get through that phase, it's on the up from there. Then we can experiment, we can play around. What can we actually do? We can work out how to make things more positive. And then finally, we end up with integration of this new way of working. And so there's lots of things that we can do. And there's things that we can do along the way that will actually help us. So at the beginning, we want to start with creating alignment, and they're color coded so that they match up. We want to create alignment. We need to communicate well with everybody. We need to motivate and get them excited about the opportunities that we've got, develop some capacity, and then we want to share the successes and share the knowledge. So that's a model that we've used to try and take everybody with us. And then the other thing to look at is, okay, so when you're actually looking at change, where are you working? Who have you got within your organization? And this is a standard bell curve, and it doesn't apply to every organization, but when you get to a large enough size, it's normally that. And you've got people, and this is me. This is where I sit. That's what I'm doing to you today. I love this stuff. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work to me. I'll soldier on and get on with it. And so people like me, and hopefully people like some of you in the audience, you need to leverage yourselves. You've got the early majority. These are the people they're the rule followers. They want to do what you tell them. They want to do what the direction is, and so they'll get on board. Then you've got the late majority. They're the ones that look for the supporters to be doing, so they test the water first, make sure it's working out for those guys. Yeah, then okay, we'll get on board now. Everyone else is doing it. And then you've got some down the bottom here, the laggards and saboteurs, or the defectors and adversaries. These are the people that are just fighting against this all the time. I'm going to be controversial. Every time I present on this topic, I am controversial a little in this stage, and I don't pay much attention to that group of people when I'm working with my organization. Now, if it was a huge number, you might need to do something about that. And it could be that I have been fortunate in what I've done. I could be naive in my approach, but trying to work hard in that area, I have not found fruition in that. That's not true. I have actually made some really big wins in that. It's far easier to build capacity first within the rest of the organization, but you make your own decisions on that. Two principles that we embedded in everything that as we were going through. Firstly, that technology is a learning enabler. It's not the learning. You've got to learn to do technology. You've got to be able to do these things, but that's not the intent if we're talking about mathematics or science or technology design, or it's not the learning. Okay, technology is the enabler. So that's the first lens that we take. And so that while I'm going to talk about digital transformation and using the stylus specifically, it's not the only thing that we do. We need to make sure that we do hands-on things. It'd be really boring if the whole world was digital. The second principle is that typing is transcribing and inking helps thinking. And if this was a face-to-face workshop and we had the time, I'd get you to do an exercise where I would actually I'd be talking to you and I'd get you to get your keyboards out and I'd get you to type what I'm writing. And I'd do a bit of instruction. I'd probably do a physics lesson or a bit of an introduction to chemistry or something like that. I'm a science teacher. And then what I'd hopefully get you to experience is the fact that if somebody is talking rapidly and you're trying to type down what they're saying word for word, you actually just transcribe what they're saying and you shortcut in your brain and you don't actually take anything in. You can't remember what you've written if you're a proficient typer. There's really good work and studies that have been done on that. Whereas inking, because we can't write as fast as we can type, inking forces you to go through a process called summary, and summary makes you make connections in your brain so that you can actually do interesting things with your learning. And so taking notes, whether it be on paper or digitally, is far better than actually typing as far as getting the learning for you as an individual. Two frameworks that we use. Firstly is, and this is a shortcut to the technological pedagogical content knowledge framework, or TPCK. I've drawn a little picture there in the top left saying read the book. There's a fantastic book on this topic. But in short, when you're in the education world, it actually came initially from some content pedagogical work. And this was I can't remember the author that did this, but there was some work done that said to be a teacher, you've got to have content knowledge and you've got to have pedagogical knowledge. And so if you're going to be I'm a science teacher, you've got to know your science. So I'm a biology chemistry specialist. I know that stuff inside out. But I also need to know how to be a teacher. I need to know when to talk at people. I need to know how to get them to engage and do things. I need to know how to intervene with a result and change a misconception. And then I also so that's the teaching side, the pedagogy. And then the intersection between those two is the pedagogical content knowledge. So I need to know that if I'm teaching the periodic table, there might be a memory game that would be really useful for that, because you do need to learn some of those things. There might be a modeling exercise that I'm going to use to talk about atomic orbital theory. So that would be an example of the pedagogical content knowledge. And the latest work says, okay, well, now in the new world, there is actually a technological knowledge that we have as teachers that we need to have. And that creates a whole bunch of intersections. We need to understand not only how to use the technology, but we need to know how to use the technology in a pedagogical way. And so I'm going to talk about some of those things today. We need to know about how to use the technology to access the content, so the technological content knowledge. And the big thing in the middle is the technological pedagogical content knowledge. And that's sort of almost the holy grail. That's where the whole thing comes together and you get, for using technology, the right tool in the right way with the right content for maximum impact with the student. So there's a whole bunch of things there. Over the left-hand side here, this is something I did with my staff. I got them to self-evaluate themselves against this framework and then got them to identify what skills and training they needed in each of those areas. And then we started some peer mentoring, which was really, really cool. That's beyond the scope of today. The other model that I want to talk about is the saņēma model from Hamilton in 2010, who said that when you're using technology, you start off with substitution, that is just replacing technology for the old analog. You can then augment things, and these are sitting in the enhancement phase. So we're just using technology to enhance what we're doing. The really exciting stuff is when we get into this transformation phase, and that transformation allows us to modify things and to redesign things in a way that we haven't been able to do, and redefine things in a way that we've never been able to see before. And I'm going to hopefully show you some things in both the bottom down here, we'll start down here, and then I'm going to end up hopefully in the top up here and show you some things that we've been doing here at our school. And just on that, this is something I did from some training with some staff a while back, just to show the the framework, the saņēma framework. So if we think about the old horse and buggy and an old black and white photo, if we want to substitute where we could just have the horse and buggy, get rid of the horse and put a steam engine on. It does the same thing. It's the same design. It's a bit different. It's using technology, but it's pretty much the same thing. If we want to augment it, then we could change the body shape. We could increase the speed. We could have pneumatic tires. so that the road, it's actually a gentler ride and a faster ride. It's added some new risks. The windscreens on these things used to break and really hurt people because they weren't safety glass, but it has been augmented. It's been added new. You could add speed and add comfort in a way that hadn't been done before. I'm in Australia, so we invented the ute, so I'm told. This is where it gets a modification. Let's actually get it up a bit further. Let's really a multi-purpose vehicle that's both comfortable, it's fast, it's got a tray at the back so you can actually move things around, you can do those sorts of things, and you're getting far better. And then you can tell by the age of when I put these slides together, I'd probably have a Tesla or something if I was redoing them now. Redefining, we're getting to autonomous vehicles, and this is a very, very early autonomous vehicle, but it's really redefining the original. If I go back to the horse and cart, it's a massive redefinition. It's doing everything on its own. Although somebody in a presentation once told me that the horse and buggy was pretty autonomous. You could drink too much and get in a horse and buggy, and the horse would take you home. So I don't know. Maybe we've come full circle. I don't know. Okay, so now let's talk about pedagogy. And pedagogy, it's a word I started using. I don't know if I coined it or I stole it, or it's whatever. But it's pedagogy is like the art of using a pen, a stylus, and for me, I think it's a nice term for us as educators. It references the pedagogy, and I guess it goes back to the TPCK, the technological pedagogical content knowledge as well. I don't know. It's a thing I do, and it's a reference a few other times in the presentation. I'm going to talk about high fidelity and low fidelity, and they'll become clear in a sec. And then I'm going to go through Office 365 with the stylus. And firstly, look at PowerPoint, then look at, I'll look at the whole of Office first, and then I'm going to go a bit of a deep dive into PowerPoint, a bit of a deep dive into OneNote, a shallow dive into camera and clipping and stylus, just because I'm using my camera now, so it's hard to demo anything. But we'll go through that now. So firstly, high fidelity and low fidelity. I was at a wonderful presentation. In 2009, I was also presenting at this conference. It's a Australasian technology, Australasian impact of tablets in education conference. I've mucked up the acronym. And Professor Gordon Sansom was presenting, and he was the director of the e-education unit at Monash University. He did a wonderful presentation talking about high fidelity artifacts and low fidelity notations. And high fidelity is things that if you think about sound systems, a high fidelity sound system has much more resolution to it. It's got a better sound. And high fidelity, when you're talking about artifacts, are things like typeset presentations, like what you're looking at now. It's high fidelity. I've taken the time to type it all out. It's photographs that we can take, or accurate representation. And then you've got the low fidelity is when you're right over the top of it to get things happening. So the high fidelity versus the low fidelity. And because of the way I'm having to present, I haven't got my screen set up that I'm drawing on the way I would like. So it is really low fidelity because I can't write that neatly as we're going. And when you mix these two together, his claim was that, and his research showed that this really improved thinking and idea synthesis. And that is, it's one better than just taking the notes in itself, and it's mashing these things together. And so here's an example. And this is, again, using the pedagogy. This is from a training course that I ran. And it gives you a bit of an example of this. You can see that this has got both the high fidelity, so it's got photographs that I've used within my teaching. There's various photographs. There's documents that I've taken and documents that I've been able to do things with. And then there's also the low fidelity, the inking annotations, which is all the bits in between, you can see. And this is all authentic stuff that I've done from my OneNote notebooks and various things. Interesting, the bottom right, it has a lot. It's got a high fidelity background, the map. It's got high fidelity photos sitting amongst it. Then it's got low fidelity annotations sitting around outside of it as well. So it really, I think, shows up the mashup of what we're talking about. And so this is a course that I started doing. Firstly, I ran it at my school, and then I ran it for the Microsoft Innovative Educator Experts within Australia as an online course. And don't try that link; it doesn't work anymore. Or if it does, it doesn't do it. It shouldn't do it. It shouldn't work anymore because this is a long time ago that I ran this course. So don't. That's not a link to you. So no, don't do that. Oh wow, my writing is so bad. Let's try let's try to show that I can actually write. So that's not working. But what I did is I ran this course to try and teach people how to use the stylus, and I'm going to try and summarize the things that I've done during that course with you. And something that I just wanted to start with, it again, I'm reusing an old slide here, but I'm specifically talking about tablet PC, although the Apple iPads with the new pencil, with all the things that they will actually do a really similar job. And it's really important, though, that what we're talking about for education is we're talking about a camera, and nowadays it's cameras, multiple cameras. It's got a keyboard of some sort, it's got a mouse or a touchpad of some sort, it's got a finger and touch, and nowadays multi-touch, so you can do gestures. It's got a microphone, it's got wireless, it's got as in connectivity, it's got Bluetooth connectivity as well, and then it's obviously got all of those additional features. And now with the stylus, now you've got additional features, like I'm doing slide progression at the moment using the stylus as we're going through, because of the way it all works. So we're talking about this sort of thing. And specifically now, let's talk about Microsoft Office with a stylus, because what's really incredible, and again, this is a resource I created a while ago, but it still has relevance, and I'm going to switch to it, and I really hope that's going to work, and you're going to be able to see it. It looks like you should be able to see it. So this is a sway, and the link on that slide that I previously, which I'll go back to, is live. And if I scroll down this, this just gives you a one-stop shop to give a bit of information about how you can use the stylus with all the Office products. And the graphics, I actually made all the graphics myself. People think I'm a wonderful drawer and a wonderful tracer. So I got the logos and traced them within OneNote. But OneNote, I'll talk about a little bit more as we're going. But what I've tried to do with this resource is just show just how easy it is to use each of these things. I love the stylus in Word. I do lots of annotations within Word for students and as a principal for documents. And what I've found is actually when you're using a stylus rather than using typed notes, and you can see that demoed over on the right-hand side there, is that it gives you, people can see the personality behind it. There's very much an impersonality sitting behind a keyboard, but there's a personality behind writing with a stylus that you can do. And you can do all sorts of things. You can highlight on the page, you can write notes. I don't know what I've just done there. Don't you love it when you press the wrong button when you're doing things? And I've got some instructions for people so they can highlight, insert annotations and ink comments and that sort of thing. Excel, similar. I love Excel. I could do a full hour. I could do a full 2 hours on Excel. But Excel, you can do things with drawing over the top of graphs or over the data or those sorts of things. And again, it's a really similar process. Just using the inking toolbar. PowerPoint, I'll do a deep dive on that, but it does really, really good stuff now in regards to using a stylus and in the presentation as I'm demonstrating today. And then you can use it, you can use it as laser pointer too, which I'm not going to demo just because of the way I'm doing things. You can change the color of things. And Outlook, something people don't realize, I'm always really surprised when people don't understand that Outlook, you can actually handwrite things. I do that in meetings, so I'm always taking notes in OneNote. And every now and again, as a principal, I get an email that I need to respond to, and you can handwrite a response. You can't do it in the window within, you've got to pop out the email first, then put the pen over the screen, and then you can handwrite stuff. So that's really useful as well. And you can mark things up. And then it's got a bit of stuff there. And then there's a younger photo of me. I'm older than that now. But that just gives you a bit of a sense, I hope, of the sorts of things that you could do with Office with a stylus. And I want you to have a resource that you can go away and play with. Some of the menus since I created this resource have slightly changed, but most people, they go, oh yeah, I can find out where it is. And anybody that knows the development of the stylus, if you look at the stylus on the screen with the purple tip, that also dates when this was as well, because the new styluses don't have a purple tip. That very much does that. Let's talk about PowerPoint now, because one of the things that I know in my school and in talking to my colleagues is that PowerPoint is very much used by a large number of people. And if you want a first foray, a first exposure into using a stylus with your education, a PowerPoint deck is a really, really powerful thing. And so one of the things I've say to many people is use the slide decks you've already got, but take away the backgrounds, make them all white, then delete about half the content, and then create the rest live with the students. So it's better than a whiteboard because you've got the planning for what you do for teaching the students. But then you've created the deck once, so you actually know what the slide should look like. But that co-creation, the sitting there live with the students doing it, really helps their learning and your explanation. And I've got a few examples now of how I've done this. This is a physics class, a year 10 physics class. And this is a skydiver simulator, and I set up a graph, sorry, not a graph, a table there. And we just went through an introductory we're getting towards terminal velocity. And we're just talking about how things would accelerate over time. And then we did some fictitious numbers. And I made that the point, this is not true, because we get to this thing called terminal velocity. And then what you can do is you can start to go through, and I've used arrows to represent forces, and I've got some figures there for the calculations. And then the difference when you get to a parachute and what that looks like, and balancing forces and unbalanced forces. And then up to the point of then calculating, okay, well, what's going to be the speed and what's the net force when we're talking about with the parachute coming through and opening up. And I don't want to give you a physics lesson now. That's not the purpose of today. But I hope that you can see by using the high fidelity clip art as a starting point, and then the low fidelity inking like you do on a whiteboard, I've been able to really leverage things up and do something really interesting with the students. With PowerPoint, you can also go a bit further, and something that especially with remote teaching and learning, it's nice to know that you can record audio, you can record the pen and highlighting strokes, and also laser pointing as you go through. And for anybody that wants to go through that, I've got a set of instructions here that I've used with my staff when we were moving to remote learning last year, so that people could take their initial content they already had without even deleting content like I just suggested if you're doing it live to the class, but you could actually talk through the process and then actually deliver that. And it's a very self-explanatory, the way that you navigate while it's recording and what it looks like. And again, I wouldn't dare demo it now while I'm also using Zoom at the same time. One thing you do need to know is that if you muck up or you need to use the PowerPoint for something else, you do need to be able to know how to clear all the timings and clear all the narrations, and then go through and delete annotations, because you need to be able to clean up your PowerPoint afterwards. Or you can save it as a different file name before you start, which is best practice. Speaking from painful learning of myself. But you can go through and delete those. So there's some instructions there on what you can do. Okay, final bit on PowerPoint. If you want to level up with PowerPoint, especially if you're trying to do anything remotely, you can add Microsoft Forms quizzes within there. So create a quiz in Microsoft Form, and there's an object you can embed in there. You can add your own YouTube video. I said add a YouTube video, so you can embed online videos or Vimeo videos or anything like that. But you can also then do your own screen recording if you want, and then add that in there. So PowerPoint's a really, really good way. And the nicety about PowerPoint is it's one file type, and when you upload it to whatever or share it, whatever you're going to get it to the kids, they're going to be able to use it within their own devices, because PowerPoint's a file type that just works on all the devices types that we've got. Camera and clipping. I won't demo the camera, but you got a sense. I use the camera all the time. I take photos of whiteboards, because I still use a whiteboard, because sometimes the kinesthetic of a big fat marker on a whiteboard is really good for kids and for me as a teacher. I do experiments with my science class, with my robotics class. We do videos and bits and pieces. The camera is amazing, and using the camera really does make it is really, really good. So please use the camera for various things. It's funny, I've got the camera down the bottom, and then at the top I've got the snipping. So on my device, I've got the camera app, but every app has I think everyone knows how to use cameras. The other thing that you can do is snip and sketch on a Windows PC is amazing. I've got mine set up so that I can click on something with my stylus tip, and oh no, it won't work now. You idiot, Matthew. No, it won't work because I'm in a presentation. So I won't demo it, but I've got mine set up to press the tip, and then I can open up select an area on my screen, and then automatically straight away you can annotate over that, and then you can put that into an email, or put that into a OneNote, or put that into a document. It's a wonderful way of being able to work. So with the snip and sketch, I always try and say that too quickly. Okay, I'm going good for time. I'm not going to, there's again, a younger me. I did a video you can find on YouTube. I should have put a link on this, but I can share a link later if you like. I did a video just trying to explain what OneNote is. And this is a still from the video where I got a whole binder and everything in the shot there, the calculator, the stapler, the glue stick, the notepad, the texter, the pen, the highlighter, the ruler, the multiple pages, the binder itself. That's what OneNote does, and so much more. And so I always started with that, and it's my biggest viewed video on YouTube. The students every now and again they see it and they just go, "Why, sir, didn't you monetize this?" And I said, "Because I want this to go out to people and not have to watch adverts." So, but every now and again they do the calculations and they tell me the money that I could have made if I monetized it. But that's not the point, is it? So I'm not going to go through the introductory thing because you can do that in your own. But go find the video. But again, starting from the beginning, one of the things that I found in our science department is we had lots and lots of booklets because teachers love making booklets. This is the things that we're going to be doing. And you just turn that into a PDF. If you don't have that already as a PDF, if you don't have it digital because somebody else created it, you can just put it through a scanner and get it. Or if you've got it as a document on your computer, you can just turn it into a PDF. You can print it to OneNote, and then you've got a digital document you can work with. And then what I've always said to people is just start doing it and stay 2 or 3 lessons ahead of the kids. Add the content as you need it. Seriously, think about the indexing of what it's going to look like. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of examples now of my OneNotes. Okay, so I'm going to go and show you this, and I've got it open already. So I'm going to flick to my OneNote. I'm not going to spend much time on this. This is my, from a few years back now, so 4 years ago, is that I built my entire course. We run 4 terms in a year. So you can see I've got term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4. And then what we've got is I do very careful indexing. So the kids understand and can navigate. And I use that by a page indent feature. I won't muck with it here because I've got it all organized as a historical record. But this is the first lesson, introducing myself to the students. Looking at a document that hasn't loaded for me, because that's fantastic. Oh, here's the overview of the document. This is the outline of what we were doing. And just it goes through, and I won't do it all because it won't all load up because of the way that I've got the computer set up at the moment. But think about your indexing so that kids can easily find their way through everything. And then if I go through term 2, you can see the same thing in term 3 and term 4. And oh, there you go. There's an example of a whiteboard where I've taken the photo on the whiteboard, because you know what? That's really good. I'm doing stuff like that. Sorry, I get so excited about this stuff. Okay, what I really want to show you though is in this workshop, and what I've got is, yep, I've started in the right place. I want to give you a few examples of OneNote and what you can actually do. So firstly, I'm going to just zoom in slightly so we can see what's going on. You can see I've taken a screenshot of the textbook I was using with the kids. And then what I did is I gave an outline at the beginning for my students, and then I've gone through and highlighted the main things I want them to do, because this was a year 9 class, I think, and they were getting a bit confused. And then I just joined the dots for them, literally, to show them what they were doing for each section. And then this is so cool. These are the homework, but I'm not going to play this video. There's a video here that I recorded where I demoed the entire experiment, and I just put the camera forward and showed my my hands and the light bulbs to demo everything. And there's an audio explanation in that PowerPoint, so anybody that forgot how it worked, they could get the teacher's explanation from that. So that's a sort of starting example. So it's taking some standard content and then adding it up. And so you can start to see, I guess, the building of things. I'll look at the assignment draft. This is a student's work. And I went through and just gave him feedback on this. This is his scientific diagram. Anyway, and I've de-identified him by scribbling out his name. But what I did is I allowed the kids to show me 2 drafts. And so what I could do is I could have both drafts side by side and then give it back to him. And I didn't have to write the same feedback where he missed things. And then go through, and he still didn't do a scientific diagram. So I was able to, over the side, give him an example of what a scientific diagram would look like. And I've got a full record of that. So when I'm talking to his parents at some point, I can go through that process. So that's a document and drawing over the top of a document. This is this is one of the such an exciting day. I've got the day circled up there, the 30th of July 2015. I'm walking down, I've got a class full of boys. It was an all-boys school that I was working at the time. And there was an earthquake near Brisbane at the time I was working in Brisbane, the other side of the country. And so this is what we did. I did live, and I need to explain, I was teaching plate tectonics and volcanoes. So I just went, wow, this is a teachable moment. So we went online and we found all the seismic stations, and we went through and we highlighted, okay, well, this is the information we need. We've got the P wave and the S wave, and we've got some stations marked off there. And then what we did is we went through and said, okay, well, let's do the calculations. And we looked up how to do the calculations. And so we looked at the SP delay for each of the stations, which I could have done, so far, everything I could have done on a whiteboard. And then what I did is there's an Excel spreadsheet there, but I actually built an Excel spreadsheet that actually had all the calculations on there. So then I could plot the distance to the epicenter based on the SP time delay, and we could then work out those distances. And we can see I drew it off on the graph just using a pen and the ruling tool within OneNote. Then I got a map from Google, worked out the scale on the map, and then we drew circles around that so we could actually work out where the epicenter was. And we did this in the class. So mashing up a whole bunch of high fidelity content with my low fidelity annotations, and the following day they plotted where it was, and the kids were amazed. The boys were just like, Mr. O'Brien, we worked it out. The following day in the newspaper they had the plot of where it was, and I wish I had a copy of that. But the kids got really excited by that. Changing tact a little bit. So far we've just done sort of introductory things. The other cool thing about OneNote is you do have a Z plane. You don't have X, Y. It's not just a static document, and I've already been demoing it because it's so natural to me now. I can zoom out, and I've zoomed out, and now I've got a high level view of my document, and I can zoom in, and I can look at my satellite that I drew. My wife tells me it doesn't really look like a satellite, but that's okay. Or I could zoom in on Australia, and I can look at Australia as a whole. Or I can zoom in on Western Australia, where I now am. Or I could zoom in on down here, and this is a really dodgy representation of my family. So pinch and zoom becomes something that you couldn't possibly do. Like, to get the sheet of paper to do this is just impossible. So let me show you an example with my ATAR biology class, and hopefully it's going to load. This is the one I alluded to earlier. I'm just going to get rid of the menu just so we can see this. So this is a map of literally the area just to the north of where we live. And so as a biologist teaching a biology course, this was really, really interesting. So this is a map, and we were talking about eutrophication, which is where too many nutrients go into a water system and they get too much nutrients, and so you get algal blooms occurring. I'm sure most people are aware of this. And what I did is I was able to find, okay, well, here's the actual information about the dorsal channel. This is from Wikipedia, a screen capture. And then I wanted to make to the point that Wikipedia is crowdsourced. And so let's look at some reliable resources. So I've actually embedded some documents. I'm not going to open those, but I've embedded some documents that are reliable sources. These are published, peer-reviewed documents. And then if we go around the Peel Inlet, I've got some aerial photos that I took. I was really lucky and got to go up with a colleague who owns a plane. I could do some teaching in regards to estuarine ecosystems and what happens. You've got increased light, you've got decreased depth, so therefore increase of temperature and so on. I could then go around and talk about, well, what's going on when you actually talk about the rivers. And we actually talked about there's a saltwater wedge effect where fresh water is overflowing saltwater, and you get a really interesting, I'm not going to give you the biology there, but some interesting stuff happening there. Here's some documentation around what eutrophication is. Oops, I zoomed out too far, sorry. And I hope I'm going slow enough for the connection. I should go slower. This is some eutrophication, what causes it at a simplistic level. Here's the sources and if we actually go back and analyze what things happen as we're going through. This is all sitting on one OneNote page. Now, if I had to try and put that on the wall of my classroom and work through it, that'd be quite a difficult thing, but I can do that all digitally. So that's that. I think that's the last thing I was planning. Oh no, I was going to show you another thing. Maths now. All science teachers need to be able to teach maths. This is some revision, and this is way back in 2014. This is revision, and this is using Pinch and Zoom. You can see we've got algebra. Here's all the algebra revision with some examples. If I go through over the other side here, this should be Cartesian planes, how to mirror shapes. And so in one page, you can see I've got a huge amount of information there, and suggestions of how to look at things, and graphing, and et cetera, et cetera. And again, the XYZ, being able to use the pinch and zoom to be able to do things makes a really good thing. It's really good for the learning of students and the organization. Okay, I'm going to stop there and go back to my presentation now. Okay, so that's class OneNote. Okay, so now let's take it a little bit further, and I want to talk about cognitive load and reducing cognitive load, because one of the things we want kids to do is we want them students to do. Kids is probably I'm thinking it's probably an Australian term. It might be, I don't know. So students, something that we want students to do is that we want them to be able to think well and not to use all of their processing power and thinking power on other things. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Okay, so this is from a drive to work in my old job. And one of the things that I realized one day is that to reduce our cognitive load when we're driving, when we're expert drivers, there's all these very simplistic signs that tell us what we need to do as drivers, so we can focus on the driving and not what we need to do next. And so we get a bunch of these things. And so in short, I developed by stealing clip art, copyright-free clip art, I tried to develop a sense of icons so that I could actually put them onto the work of students, so that I could get them to really not worry about what they had to do, but so they didn't have to ask, okay, what do I need to do next? Then they could focus on the actual task. So just like with driving, what speed do I need to go at? Okay, I know I need to go at 80. Okay, I'm going to drive now. I'm going to drive at 80. And so these icons, the idea is to get the kids so they know what they need to do. And so I should go through them probably. It's going to let me go back. So the first one was use a stylus. The second one was type. The third one is use the web. The fourth one is don't use the web. Traffic lights is just a system, red, green, yellow, how are you going? Email, save, although no kid knows what the save icon means now, although even though it's still used, but anyway, so save, put this in a folder, copy, paste, question, multiple choice, yes, no, this is important. Then we've got a stopwatch, do this, or a timer. This is going to be a timed exercise. This is for your information. I'm pointing at these and I'm realizing you don't know which one. Search, make sure you look carefully. Here's an idea. I want you to graph this information. I want you to tabulate this information. Do this as a process or a flow chart or calculate a value. I hope people sort of got the gist of it as they went through, but they're supposed to be self-explanatory. As an example, in this one, so what it says is, because always when I was doing science, I wanted students to actually make sure that they understood what I was doing. So in this task, I want them to tabulate the data. I don't want them to use a computer. I want them to use a stylus. And I also want to get a graph out of it. And this is what I would expect for them to do. So I'm going to get them to do, okay, well, here's the time, here's the temperature, and then I'm going to graph the data. I'm going to put a line of best fit through the data. And the idea is that I get rid of all those questions that are, sir, do I use Excel for this? Sir, what do you want me to do? Sir, with the data, it just gets them onto the task itself. For you guys, this is a point to my blog. If you want to get these icons, you can download them at educationstylus.com, my website, which my blog is. I haven't done much since I became a principal. I haven't had much time to write. But if you search for cognitive, you can read a whole article on this, and you can download the article for free as we're going through. Okay.
Metjū, yes. Runājās, ir laiks tā kā jautājumiem. Tāpēc mums, diemžēl, laiks ir...
Okay. No problem at all. I will just wind up then with...
Ja ir nepieciešams pabeigt, var 1 vai 2 minūtes, un tad mēs pāriesim uz jautājumiem.
Not a problem at all. So if I can have 4 minutes, I can certainly do that.
Nu, divas. Trīs, labi, 3
Ah,
minūtes.
done. Okay, done. Okay, so I was going to show you another example of what you can do reducing cognitive load. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about power of the pen. I'm going to give you an example. So this is from my class, and this is where you can really get exciting stuff happening. This is a prac where I've gone through and highlighted measurements in blue, things that the students needed to, measurements in green, things that the students had to do in blue, and what they were doing in yellow. And then from there, what we did is we then went through and drew a diagram to represent that as a class so that students know what they were going to do. And this was really, really exciting because it changed the conversation when the students were doing the prac from being one about, sir, what's next? What are we doing? To, okay, well, this is what what's happening, and we're going from, so they understood what was happening and they were having high level questions as they're going through. I'm going to really rapidly go through this and to say, when COVID hit, we were at a point where we were just starting down this pathway. And what we said to staff was, okay, you can do the video stuff, you can do the PowerPoint stuff as asynchronous, working in different times at different spaces. Where it gets really cool is in Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to, I did already delete it out. Microsoft Teams has been a game changer for us, and the sort of work that we've been able to do with the students encompass everything that I've showed you today with the stylus, but in a managed way, also dealing with the interaction with students. And so we've been able to, now we're at a point where we're re-looking at both of our models and saying, well, what's the next thing that we need to do? How are we going to get to this next place? Because we've had to iterate so quickly with COVID that our 5-year plan, we completed in 5 weeks. So I think that was the plan. And so then this is the questions time. And that was, looking at my, there you go. I was 2.5 minutes, Maria.
Jā, paldies lieliski. Jā, paldies liels, Metjū, tas bija ļoti interesanti. Es klausītos vēl 1, 2, 3, bet, diemžēl, laiks. Jautājumu arī ir diezgan daudz, bet mums laika ir apmēram 7 minūtes, 5, 7 minūtes, tā kā mēģināsim darīt. Ir viens jautājums, kas ir angļu valodā, un es viņu arī nolasīšu angliski, lai ir patiešo. Tā kā jā, tagad būs angliski. Pirmais jautājums ir, can you please explain a bit more about IT steering committee, which you mentioned? Is it your school's like independent committee, or like who's working in that committee? Are these the school teachers or some people from outside, and how many people?
Yeah, sure, Maria. Our IT steering committee is it is made up of myself as the principal, my head of secondary, and my head of primary as the relevant sub-schools, our director of IT, who does the technical side of things, our school archivist, who is involved with document management, our school librarian from an information source, and that's it. A small, very manageable group with a big amount of influence within the organisation.
Jā, paldies liels. Vēl ir jautājums, varbūt kādas uz doto brīdi ir grūtības šajā pārmaiņu procesā no papīra uz digitālo? Varbūt tieši uz doto brīdi, kad jau ir pagājis laiks, kādas vēl varbūt grūtības vai kas jāuzlabo?
I think the biggest difficulty we have at the moment is we still have a photocopier printer accessible within 5 meters, probably 10 meters of every employee. We've got a large number of them. And even though you can do everything I've just demoed, people are still photocopying and handing out things. And our printing budget is, it's scary. We spend tens of thousands of dollars on printing every year. And so for me, that's a big problem, because whilst the teachers, the staff, myself included, it's really easy to print something. We're not finessing and getting the workflow for the digital. Many people are doing really good work in the digital, but the problem with all of us is that we're so used to doing things in an old analog way. When we get pressured and under stress, we drop back to our old way of working. And so then we hit print and we take a sheet of paper to the classroom or the sheet of paper to the meeting. And so that's a problem. The solution is to cap printing and take away printers.
Jā. Vēl ir tāds jautājums arī par līdzīgu tēmu. Vai jūsuprāt ir izdevies sasniegt balansu tieši jaunajā digitālajā formātā izglītības kvalitātē? Vai, piemēram, agrāk, pirms digitālā, kvalitāte bija labāka, vai tagad ir izdevies arī panākt, lai kvalitāte ir pietiekami laba digitālajā formātā?
We were actually having a conversation about this with staff just recently. And when we first got locked down with COVID and we had to really use all these tools completely and authentically, there was so much stress for people that they were, the staff, that they went back to basics a lot. And honestly, the quality wasn't there because time, just like happened today, they prepare too much and they can't deliver it in the time, and they're not good at doing things in a digital world. What's really good now is having had that experience last year, and we're currently very lucky in being back face to face. Teachers are saying, well, I know we got to go. We're likely to have to go back to lockdown. It's inevitable, I think, at some point. And so they know they're preparing for that. But we're talking about the teacher quality and saying, okay, well, now we've got all this digital stuff. We're actually doing things differently than we've ever done before. And a bunch of teachers got together and they said, you know what? I was really set in my ways. I'd been doing the same thing for 10 years, for 15 years. This has forced me to look at it in a new way. And I realized that I needed to update this content or this process or this way of teaching. And so change, almost for change's sake, regardless of the stylus and pen, has had an impact. But now we've rolled out the stylus and pen to all of our students. This year is the first year that every student in the school has one. We previously, last year, we had our years 12s and year 9s didn't. Now there's a consistency across the whole school, so everybody has these. And then the kids are learning that you can't do without these. So when the battery fails or the stylus tip comes out or whatever, they're down to IT to get it fixed, because for the most part, they can't function for the things that they want to do without it. That's a sign of success for me. We're really mashing up those two things.
Jā, paldies liels. Mēs esam precīzi laikā, tā kā ir laiks beigt šodienas darbnīcu. Liels paldies, Metjū. Tas bija liels gods, kā bijāt šodien ar mums. Bija ļoti interesanti un iedvesmojoši. Jā, un es ceru, ka visi klātesošie arī guva kādu iedvesmu un varbūt jaunumus, ko var pielietot jūsu darbā. Tā kā paldies visiem, kas piedalījās. Paldies, Metjū. Un jā, lai visiem jauka diena un uz redzēšanos.
Nu ko, viena mazā kustību sesija. Lielas kustības, milzu kustības nekas tāds nebūs. Šoreiz mēs tieši šajā reizē vienā no 4. Mēs atpūtināsim mazliet acis un uztaisīsim savu restartu caur elpošanu. Tātad, acu atpūtināšana. Viens pirksts, rādītāja pirksts, otrs rādītāja pirksts. Skatāmies uz abiem diviem. Un tad viņus attālinam vienu no otra. Mēģinam redzēt abus divus, bet neskatīties ne uz vienu. Līdz ar to mums sanāk tāda blenšana kaut kur te pa vidu starp pirkstiem. Un mēs savu fokusēto skatienu uz ekrāna atslābinam ar to, ka mēs defokusējam savu skatienu. Nav neviena konkrēta punkta, kur mēs konkrēti skatāmies. Mēs atpūtinam acis ar defokusētu skatienu. Šo es silti ieteiktu ik pa laikam darīt, To var darīt ar pirkstiem, ar plaukstām. To var darīt vienkārši, ja mēs jau jūtam, kā to darīt, tad es safokusējos un tagad es defokusējos. Un ja vēl tādu defokusētu skatienu var aizvērt acis, vispār ideāli. Labi, nākamais būs sažmiegsim acis un ieelposim vienlaikus. Lielu ieelpu un sažmiegtas acis, un tā kā ir izelpa, tad gan acis laižam vaļā, gan elpu laižam vaļā. Izelpa vienkārši pati notiekās. Un atkal, kā mēs ieelpojam, tā sažmiedzam acis. Sažmiedzam cieši acis un ieelpojam lielu elpu, jo īpaši diafragmā, un izelpā visu laižam vaļā. Sažmiedzam acis ieelpā, liela ieelpa, un laižam vaļā. Šo var darīt tik ilgi, cik pašam patīk. Ja patīk, daram ilgāk. Un tā solītā elpošana. Mēs darīsim to, ko sauc par 4x7. Kādreiz viņu sauc arī par box breathing, tā kā kastes elpošana. Jo mēs uz 7 skaitot ieelposim, uz 7 skaitot būsim aizturējuši elpu, uz 7 skaitot mēs izelposim, un līdz 7 skaitot mēs aizturēsim elpu tukšās plaušās. Un tā uz riņķi, tāpēc to par box breathing, jeb kastes elpošanu sauc. Paprovēsim pāris ciklus, un tad, ja gribēsies, ja jutīsiet rezultātu foršu, tad daram vēl, daram biežāk. Tātad, izelpojam, visu izelpojam, un sākam ieelpot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, aizturam elpu, atlaižam plecus, visu augšdaļu atlaižam, aizturam elpu, kaut kur apmēram 4, 5, 6, 7 notiek, laižam izelpu vaļā, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, aizturam tukšā plaukšā elpu, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sajūtam, kā gribam ieelpot un ieelpojam, skaitot līdz 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, aizturam pilnā plaušā elpu un atlaižam plecus un skaitam vēl līdz 4, 5, 6, 7, izelpojam 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, aizturam tukšā plaušā elpu 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Vienkārši atslāpstam, elpojam, kā mums gribās. Šie bija tikai 2 cikliņi, pēc kuriem baigo rezonanci nevar varbūt nemaz sajust, bet kaut ko var jau sajust. Pievēršam uzmanību, kā mēs sajūtam savu ķermeni, savu fiziskumu, ko fiziski ķermenī jūtam. Ideāli, ja mums ir aizvērtas acis, ja mēs sēžam vai stāvam vai varbūt guļam pavisam atslābuši, pievēršam uzmanību tam, kā mēs ieelpojam, kā mēs izelpojam un kas fiziski mūsu ķermenī, mūsu mājās notiekās. Kādas sajūtas? Esam sazemējušies, varam rulēt tālāk pie ekrāniem, pie logiem.